All right, dummies, it's time for another 2023 college football team season preview and game-by-game prediction. That's right, not just a record, a game-by-game prediction. Every single game they're win or lose. Who's up today? The Southern Cal Trojans. Let's go. Yeah, good morning, and that is Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it also, and in addition to that as well. Hey, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year. Some of them are even watchable. I don't know about this one. You can let me know in the comments at the end of the video, I guess, whether you thought this one was watchable or not. We do live streams year-round, call-in shows every Tuesday and Thursday. We have a really good time. This is a pretty average to below average channel, but we have a great community of college football fans here, so make sure you stick around. All right, shout out to my man Bernie and that over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. Bernie, I appreciate you helping to support the channel and the show by signing up over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. Every day when I sit down to get ready to do one of these team prediction and previews, I head over to the Patreon page. I have a post over there. It's the first post on the page if you go over there, talking about these prediction videos, and everybody on the Patreon page is commenting the videos that they want me to do. I sit down, I go through the list, I pick out a team, and that's the prediction video I do for the day. So, Bernie, you're up today with Southern Cal. If you'd like to check out the Patreon page, the link is in the description of this video. All right, here we go, Southern Cal's Trojans. Same way we've done the rest of these videos, which I've got a whole series of them. There's a playlist on this channel of all the prediction videos I've done so far. I think I've done 6 or 7. I don't know. We're going to do about 40 or 50 before it's all said and done here up through the start of the season. Southern Cal up today. Lincoln Riley headed into year 2, right, at Southern Cal. Spent several years at Oklahoma. We all know the story there. Sort of packed up and left in the middle of the night. One of the more surprising college football moves in recent memory. Takes his circus out west to Los Angeles and Southern Cal, where they'd been struggling for a while, and had a pretty good season last year in year 1. Unfortunately, it was a pretty familiar season if you've been following Lincoln Riley. They went 11-1 in the regular season. They then lost in the Pac-12 title game and lost in their New Year's 6 game to finish with a record of 11-3. Now, the story of Lincoln Riley, at least so far, is very well known. He's going to have a great offense every single year. He's going to have a Heisman caliber and Heisman contending, if not winning, QB every single year. One of the best offenses in football, and a defense that just doesn't exist. And unfortunately for Southern Cal, they found that out for themselves firsthand last year. Southern Cal's defense was absolutely horrendous, with the exception of turnovers, which I'm going to talk about when we talk about Southern Cal's offense and defense for 2023. But the defense was absolutely horrible. If you watch their losses, particularly their last two losses in the Pac-12 title game and then the New Year's 6 game, in the second half of those games, they just could not get a stop if their life depended on it. The defense just fell apart. The same thing we've seen from Lincoln Riley defenses pretty much every single year he's been a head coach. Alex Grinch is the defensive coordinator. He was the defensive coordinator at Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley made the bad decision, in my opinion, to bring him with him to Southern Cal. Last year was no better than anything we ever saw at Oklahoma, and he kept him again for this year. Seat warming up, I guess, for Alex Grinch, but I don't understand how the guy still has a job there. Is absolutely horrendous. Lincoln Riley's had 2 or 3 different defensive coordinators. They've all kind of worked out the same, which is that the defense has just been horrible. Clearly, if you're a Southern Cal fan and you're looking, what do we need to do to take the next step type of deal, it's got to come on the defensive side of the ball. You reach a point of diminishing return offensively in terms of how good you can be. There's not a whole lot of difference between scoring 40 or 45 points a game over the course of a season versus scoring 60 points a game over the course of a season, really, especially if your defense is horrendous and you're giving up an average of 20, 25, 30, 35 points a game. Eventually, you're going to run into that game where the offense either doesn't play well or the defense you're playing is good enough to slow it down, and your own defense is not good enough to get those critical stops when you need them, and that is what has stopped Lincoln Riley, both at Oklahoma and last year at Southern Cal. Kind of famously never won a playoff game. Made the playoffs a bunch of times with Oklahoma, nearly made it last year. They'll be looking to do that, of course, this year. Let's take a look at some numbers for Southern Cal. If I accidentally say Oklahoma in this video, I've got a bad habit of referring to Southern Cal as Oklahoma just because, Lincoln Riley on my mind. I'm clearly talking about Southern Cal in this video. I don't know if I've made that mistake yet, but I'll probably make it at some point in this video. I'll refer to Southern Cal as Oklahoma. So if I just, you can tell me I'm stupid in the comment section. That's fine. I get told that 100 times a day anyway. But let's take a look at some other Southern Cal heading into the 2023 season. Where do I have Southern Cal ranked in my preseason ranking? Now, I do 3 preseason rankings. I do one after signing day in February. I do one after the spring games have concluded in April and the beginning of May. That's my most current one. And I do a third and final preseason or off-season ranking about 3 or 4 weeks before the season starts, usually in the beginning of August. So I've still got one updated ranking to come out in about 5 or 6 weeks. But right now, in my post-spring preseason 2023 ranking, I've got Southern Cal at 10. I think in the February ranking, I had them at 7 or 8. Now I've got them at 10. It was nothing Southern Cal did wrong between February and April. It was hard for me to differentiate between several of the Pac-12 schools, Oregon and Washington primarily, along with Southern Cal. I have a feel if I was going to redo my top 25 ranking today, which I'm not doing it till August, I'm probably going to end up moving Southern Cal up a little bit. When I sit down to do these videos, believe it or not, I do a lot of research. I don't just sit down and hit record and start blabbering. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert. I'm a college football fan. That's all I am. I'm a college football fan like everybody that watches these videos. But I do read as much as I can about these teams when I sit down to do these prediction videos. And after reading some things about Southern Cal today, I'm a little bit higher on Southern Cal now than I was when I made my ranking, which reflects this Southern Cal at 10 ranking. They will probably move higher when I make my final preseason ranking in August, but I've got them at 10. Where are they ranked nationally? Well, obviously, it depends where you look. Everybody and their brother puts out one of these preseason rankings, right? I mean, everybody from ESPN to Fox Sports to Yahoo Sports to Saturday Down South, 24/7, On3, right? I mean, you name it. Everybody puts out a top 25. Now, the quote-unquote official rankings, I guess, the AP and the coaches, which is kind of what people go by during the season, at least until the playoff rankings come out the end of October. Those rankings aren't out yet. Those rankings don't come out till later in the offseason. So you're just finding, pretty much, like I said, anybody with an internet connection that's put out a top 25 ranking. Depending on which one of those rankings you look at, Southern Cal falls generally in the 4 to 10 category. There are more Southern Cal, primarily in the 4 to 6, 7, 8 range. There's a few outlier polls, mine being one of them that's got them in the 9 or 10 spot. Most have Southern Cal between about 4 and 6. What about total wins? What's the expected win total for Southern Cal in 2023, Lincoln Riley's second year? This is the Vegas win total. This is a betting number. This is for people who bet college football. So the number is 10. That's the expected number of wins for Southern Cal in 2023, at least according to Vegas. So like I said, that's a betting number. So the way that works is if you think Southern Cal is going to win more than 10 games, which of course would be 11-1 or 12-0, this is a regular season win total, by the way. This doesn't account for any postseason games, whether it be conference championships, bowl games, playoffs, national title games, none of that kind of stuff. It's just a 12-game regular season win total. They got them at 10. So if you think they're going to do better than that, you bet over 10. If you think they're going to do worse than that, you bet the under 10. But this is a pretty good indication about how the betting public feels about Southern Cal heading into the season. 10 wins. Heisman Trophy candidates, well, this is an obvious one, right? Caleb Williams. I mean, he won it last year as a sophomore. He comes back as a junior this year. You don't have to know much about Lincoln Riley's quarterback. Now, obviously, we know a lot about Caleb Williams because he was so good last year, but you just know Caleb Williams or Lincoln Riley's quarterback is going to put up ridiculous numbers and be in the Heisman conversation every single year. I mean, you just go back and look from Baker Mayfield to Kyler Murray, even Jalen Hurts, and, of course, now Caleb Williams. Won it last year. It is hard to win it back-to-back. It's only been done once in the history of college football. With that being said, though, the odds for Caleb Williams to repeat as Heisman Trophy winner in 2023, plus 600, which makes him the favorite. In fact, no one else is really close. Second place is Jordan Travis at plus 1,200. So Caleb Williams has twice as good of odds of winning the Heisman as the second place person right now, Jordan Travis. Again, these are Vegas betting numbers. So this just means that more people are betting on Caleb Williams to win the Heisman than anyone else, right? Makes sense if you think about it. What about winning the Pac-12? Southern Cal came up 1 game short last year, right? Lost in the regular season to Utah. Got them to 11-1. A rematch with Utah in the Pac-12 title game, which they lost again. That put them at 11-2 before losing to Tulane in a New Year's Six game. Finished at 11-3. What are the odds of Southern Cal taking that next step and winning the Pac-12 in 2023? Well, again, they are the favorite. Odds plus 210. It's pretty good odds to win the conference there. Second place, Oregon at plus 290. Third place, Washington at plus 400, followed up by Utah at plus 500. So those are your 4 sort of favorites in the Pac-12. And again, if you've been paying any attention at all to college football during the course of the offseason, you already know that. These are the 4 teams that everyone talks about when they talk about the Pac-12. Oregon State's expected to be pretty good. UCLA may be decent, right? But these are the 4 teams that are expected to vie for the Pac-12 championship. There's no divisions in the Pac-12 anymore, so they just take the 2 best teams and pit them against each other in the Pac-12 championship game. Last year was Southern Cal and Utah, with Utah coming out on top. The odds right now, plus 210 in favor of Southern Cal. What about a national title? Now, this is going to be extremely difficult for Southern Cal to do under Lincoln Riley, in my opinion. I'm on record. I don't think Lincoln Riley's ever winning a playoff game until he figures out that defense is played on both sides of the ball. People are going to say, well, you just hate Lincoln Riley, or just, because just hate Oklahoma, or you hate Southern Cal. Or maybe I've just watched football a long time. And, look, Lincoln Riley's a good coach. I did a top 5 coaches list not that long ago. I had Lincoln Riley in the top 5 or 6. He's made a bunch of playoffs. He's won a bunch of conference titles. But let's be real. His defense has been atrocious every single year he's been a head coach. I don't just mean it's been bad. It's been excruciatingly bad every single year, now at 2 different premier Power 5 programs, Oklahoma and Southern Cal. So I'm the type of guy that's in the boat that, I've got to see Lincoln Riley field a respectable defense before I buy into the idea that it's going to happen. We don't have just 1 or 2 years to go off of here. And you can say, well, he's at Southern Cal now. That's different than Oklahoma. Not really. Not really. He has the same defensive coordinator he had at Oklahoma, and in year 1 at Southern Cal, he had the exact same results. So not saying it can't be done. I'm just not willing to buy into it until I see it. But if you think Southern Cal is winning the national title in 2023 and you want to place a bet on it, you can do that at plus 1,400 odds. And that gives Southern Cal the 5th best odds in the country of winning a national title. Of course, the 4 teams ahead of them are the 4 probably best programs in college football right now, with Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, and Michigan. Those 4 teams have better odds to win the national title than Southern Cal. Southern Cal comes in at 5th. Right after Southern Cal is LSU at plus 1,600, and then Michigan at plus 900. Is that right? That doesn't sound right. Michigan's ahead of Southern Cal. I'm sorry. That's what it is, which I already mentioned. So Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, the 4 teams ahead of Southern Cal in terms of national title odds. LSU right behind them in 6th in terms of national title odds at plus 1,600. Again, Southern Cal's odds plus 1,400. All right, let's take a look at Oklahoma's coaching staff, offense, and defense, and see what they can do in 2023. All right, year 2 under Lincoln Riley, let's take a look at the offense. Quarterback Caleb Williams. One of, if not the best quarterbacks in all of college football, right? I think we all know that. It's not a surprise for me to say that. He's going to have another great year. He comes back. There's 0 questions about Southern Cal when it comes to the quarterback. At running back, they bring in Marshawn Lloyd from South Carolina. Now, I'm an SEC guy. Marshawn Lloyd's a really good running back. Don't listen to South Carolina fans that tell you he's not. Yeah, he struggled at times, some injury concerns. And Marshawn Lloyd is a hell of a running back. And I think he's going to be the best running back on Southern Cal's team this year. I know you got a veteran coming back. Austin Jones, I think is his name. I think Marshawn Lloyd's better than him. You got a couple of freshmen that might play. They actually might play some slot receiver too. What are their names? I know I wrote their names down. Zachariah Branch? I think it's Zachariah Branch and Raleek Brown. Probably going to play some running back, some slot receiver. But look, Marshawn Lloyd is an every down back. I mean, this is a guy that can line up behind Caleb Williams or next to him in a shotgun and can pound between the tackles 10, 15 times a game. He's a legitimate running back. This is a good get for Lincoln Riley and Southern Cal. And they brought a lot in from the transfer portal again. I mean, this has been kind of a theme for Lincoln Riley since he got to Southern Cal. Pretty much built the team last year through the transfer portal. Had the #1 transfer portal transfer class in the country his first year in Southern Cal. Top 4 this year heading into year 2. So brought in a bunch of people again through the transfer portal on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Tight end, 5-star Deuce Robinson. Now look, this is a kid that Georgia wanted bad. And we all know Georgia's recent history with tight ends. If Georgia goes after a tight end that hard, chances are he's pretty good. And I think that's the case with Deuce Robinson. Now, there are some question marks with Deuce Robinson because he's also he's a 2-sport guy. He's a baseball guy too. So, it's got to always kind of be in the back of your mind. Is he going to leave you to go to the baseball route? It looks like he's sticking around and playing college football at least for 1 season. So, we'll see. I think he's going to be really, really good. He's big, tall, long arms, athletic, everything you want in a premier tight end, Deuce Robinson. Wide receiver. Southern Cal lost a lot of wide receivers off of last year's team. Now, they got some young guys that they've recruited. They've got an All-American that they brought in, just like they did last year through the transfer portal. This time a kid from Arizona, Dorian Singer, I believe was his name, who was, I think I said All-American, his first team All-Pac-12. But Southern Cal is going to be loaded at wide receiver. I mean, they always are. You go back to the years where Southern Cal struggled under Clay Helton, and even before that. They always had 2 or 3 NFL wide receivers on that team, and nothing has changed. That's still the case at Southern Cal. Caleb Williams is going to have plenty of weapons on the outside to throw the ball to when Southern Cal's got the ball. If I have any question at all about Southern Cal's offense, and it's really not that big of a question mark, it's the offensive line. It's kind of a reshuffled offensive line versus what we saw last year. Going to be at least 3 new starters on that offensive line, maybe 4. 3 of those new starters are probably going to be transfer players. Again, this is a position group where you brought in a ton through the transfer portal. Southern Cal's recruited well, too. It's not just transfer portal for Southern Cal. They have recruited well, but you got to remember, this is Lincoln Riley's 2nd year there. So all of his, high school recruits are freshmen and sophomores. So you're going to see more of that, I think, start to play, and especially along the offensive line as we move into 2024 and beyond. Last year and this year, it's been a lot of transfer, kind of plug-and-play type of deals, and I think that's what you're going to see this year along the offensive line. Probably 3 transfers at least starting along the offensive line for Southern Cal. But Southern Cal is going to have a legitimate and elite offense again in 2023, just like they do every single year under Lincoln Riley. Again, you don't have to watch this video or any video. If you've been watching college football at all over the past 10 years, Lincoln Riley's going to have one of the best offenses in all of college football year in and year out. That will be the case in 2023. All right, and this is where the problems start if you're Lincoln Riley or if you're now a Southern Cal fan, and it's on the defensive side of the ball. And again, none of these issues that we're going to talk about with Southern Cal's defense are one-year issues. I know they're one-year issues for Southern Cal, man, because he's only been there for 1 year, but I'm sure the majority of Southern Cal fans actually watch some college football outside of Southern Cal. I'm sure you saw Oklahoma play under Lincoln Riley. And just like I talked about at the top of the video, this has just been a sore spot for Lincoln Riley since the minute he was hired as head coach at Oklahoma. His defense has ranked pretty much in the hundreds in every major category almost every single year that he's been a head coach. In some cases, dead last in things like total yards, yards per play, scoring defense, things like this. The defense has just been horrendous. Again, it was bad last year. I understand that it's easy to say, well, that was year 1. We expect improvement in year 2. And look, I'm not saying the defense can't get better. Of course it can get better. In some areas, it can't get worse. So it is probably going to get a little bit better in year 2. Again, you brought in some key transfer pieces, which we'll talk about here in a minute. It would take a monumental effort defensively, in my opinion, for Southern Cal to get where they need to get this year, for Southern Cal to have a team that's capable of winning a national title. One of the best offenses I've ever seen from Lincoln Riley, and I think anybody's ever seen, this might be the best offense Lincoln Riley's ever had, was that 2017 Oklahoma team with Baker Mayfield in that classic Rose Bowl game against Georgia. Georgia was a run-of-the-mill offense back then. That was Kirby Smart's 2nd year. We had Jake Fromm at quarterback. It was not very good. We didn't have any wide receivers on that team who you can find in the NFL today, with the exception of Miko Hardman, who's primarily a punt returner in the NFL. We had 2 great running backs in Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, but Georgia was not some sort of high-flying top 10, top 15, even top 20 offense back in 2017, and we put up 50-something points on Oklahoma and beat them. Yeah, Oklahoma scored a ton of points. It was a great game, 52-48 or whatever the final score ended up being, something like that. It was a great game, maybe the best Rose Bowl in history, one of them for sure. But that was the best offense you had, and you came up short in the playoff. The defense has got to get better. It's just got to get better, and not just a little bit better. It's got to get significantly better. Now, let's talk about the positive from Southern Cal's defense last year, and that's the turnover margin. Southern Cal led the country in turnover margin last year. Now, I'm not saying that that's pure luck, because it's not. I mean, you've got to have the athletes in the secondary to make interceptions, right? They've got to have the cover skills to be in position, and then they've got to have the athletic ability and skill to actually go up and get the ball. hard hits that cause fumbles, right? Yeah, there's a lot of that goes on. And there's a lot of that went on for Southern Cal last year. However, turnovers over the course of a season will always involve a little bit of luck one way or the other, good luck or bad luck, particularly on fumbles, right? The football is oddly shaped. It hits the ground, it bounces this way. The next time it hits the ground, it bounces that way. That's the difference in it bouncing into an Oklahoma player's arms on defense or the offense recovering their own fumble. More times than not last year when that happened, Oklahoma, right place, right time. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Oklahoma. That's an impressive stat, and that is a stat that keeps you in a lot of games even when you don't have an offense, which Oklahoma does. Winning the turnover battle is huge, huge. Winning the turnover margin over the course of a year, to me, is not a stat that's repeatable. That's not something that you can, that's not something you've built and recruited for. Now, I can say, well, we teach this way. Everybody does. I'm just saying, to me, there's too much luck involved. Tip balls on interceptions. One tip goes that way, one tip goes that way. One pass gets batted down, the next pass gets batted up. So just too much. If you're relying on winning the turnover margin, or not even winning the turnover margin, but being number one in the country in turnover margin to keep you in games, to me, that's not a recipe for long-term success defensively. Not when you're so bad in almost every other aspect of defense. Like yards allowed per play, where you were 125th in the country out of only 132 or 133 teams. 125th in yards per play allowed. That's just absolutely horrible. You don't need, with an offense like Oklahoma's, you don't have to have a Georgia-level defense or a Michigan-level defense or a Clemson or a Bama-level defense. You don't necessarily have to have a top 5 defense. But you need a top 25-ish, top 30-ish, not triple digits. This is unacceptable. 125th in yards per play. 94th in scoring. 94th. There's 93 teams in the country that allowed less points per game than Southern Cal. That is that should be unacceptable to every Southern Cal fan on the planet. I spend a lot of time talking to Tennessee fans. They have a lot in common right now with Southern Cal. They've got a really good offense. They'll tell you it's the best in college football. So will Southern Cal. Their defense is pathetic and piss poor. And I tell Tennessee fans all the time, okay, you scored 45 points a game last year. That's great. What are you going to do, score 75? You just get to a point where it doesn't matter how much better your offense gets. If your defense doesn't improve, you can expect a lot of the same type of results that ended your season last year, whether you're Southern Cal or Tennessee. And that's just an inability to stop the opponent from getting first downs, getting yards, and scoring points. It's got to get better. Can it? Well, it can. Again, with the transfer portal, you bring in Bear Alexander, somebody I know a lot about, played for Georgia last year. He was a true freshman. While not technically a starter, he played behind Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter was injured for a significant amount of the season last year, 4 or 5 games right in the middle of the season, and Bear Alexander was his replacement. And even in games where Jalen Carter played, because Georgia rotates players in and out so much, Bear Alexander played a ton. He was very impressive. Very impressive. In my opinion, he would have been the best defensive lineman on the team had he stayed at Georgia this year. And again, if you pay any attention at all to college football outside of Southern Cal, if you're a Southern Cal fan, I'm pretty sure you know Georgia's got a pretty good defense. And part of that is a bunch of NFL players along the defensive line. Bear Alexander might have been the best of them in 2023. He leaves. The reasons why are irrelevant. He's at Southern Cal. He's probably Southern Cal's best defensive player the minute he steps on campus. Maybe the second best. I really like that safety you have, too. We'll talk about him in a second. But he is an absolute stud on the defensive line. He's a future NFL player, and he's the real deal. And so that is a net positive for sure for Southern Cal to pick him up. Sorry about that. Kalen Bullock, is that his name? Is that the safety? I know it's Kalen. I might be saying the last name wrong. He's really good, too. In your secondary, he plays safety. He's back. He may be your best player. This is year 2 for him there with Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch. Well, this will be Bear Alexander's first year in that system, so we'll see. Linebacker Gentry is back. Again, he's an athletic freak. Again, you've got some decent players on all 3 levels of your defense. I think Bear Alexander, is it Corey Freeman too that you have on the outside there? So you've got some talent there on all 3 levels, some talent, some ability, some NFL players on all 3 levels. I don't know if it's a philosophy, like a Lincoln Riley philosophy that trickles from the top down. I don't know if it's an Alex Grinch philosophy or scheme. I don't know if it's how Southern Cal runs their practices or how Oklahoma before that ran their practices under Lincoln Riley. I'm not smart enough to pinpoint exactly what the reason is that Lincoln Riley's defenses have been so bad for so long without exception. And I'm not going to pretend that I know what the fixes are. It's just obvious to me that there needs to be some fixes. I watch Oklahoma play and now Southern Cal play, and I consistently see missed tackles, players out of position, wide receivers wide open, running backs running down the field with the ball, and there's not a defender within 10 yards of them. You just see that consistently. You saw it last year at Southern Cal. You saw it the year before at Oklahoma, the year before that at Oklahoma, the year before that at Oklahoma. You just see the same. You see the same types of things. Again, the word soft has been used to describe Lincoln Riley's teams in the past. Now, fan bases get extremely upset when I say that. I've said it about Ohio State. I think there is some of that going on with a Lincoln Riley coached team. I don't, like I said, I don't know if it's his overall philosophy or attitude towards practice. I don't know. Do they not go live and practice maybe as much as some other teams do? Again, these are questions I'm asking. These are not, I'm not suggesting these are the problems. These are the questions I'm asking. It's easy for me to know. I think it's easy for anybody to know that Southern Cal's defense needs to improve. As far as why it's so bad exactly, clearly they've had some less talented defenses. I mean, I'm not going to argue that point. They don't have the talent. They didn't at Oklahoma, and they don't at Southern Cal, that a Georgia or Clemson or a Bama or a Michigan or whatever, Iowa, whatever best defenses you want to name. But they've got some talented players. And there's really no excuse that these Lincoln Riley. And look, it seems like I'm harping on this defensive thing, but here's the thing. I could have made this video 2 minutes long. I could have said Oklahoma's going to have one of, if not the best offenses in the country. They're probably going to have one of, if not the worst defenses in the Power 5. And if they do, they're going to go 11-1, maybe win the Pac-12 and get to a playoff, and then they're going to lose the playoff game, and that'll be it. It's the same thing you've seen every year for Lincoln Riley for every year he's been a coach. I could have just done that. But I honestly don't know if that's going to be the case. Maybe this is the year where it all comes together for Lincoln Riley defensively. Again, I've been open and honest with you on this video. I have to see it to believe it. I don't generally make playoff predictions or whatever in June anyway, but I'll go ahead and tell you, I don't think Southern Cal is winning a national championship in 2023. I've got to see a Lincoln Riley team play legitimate defense in a big game before I'm willing to make the leap and say, okay, Southern Cal and Lincoln Riley is now a better team than Georgia or Ohio State or Michigan or Bama or Clemson or whoever you think the other playoff contenders might be. Southern Cal is clearly a playoff contender, okay? So, again, you can call it hate. You can call it bias. You can tell me I'm ignorant. You can tell me whatever you want. What you can't do is tell me I'm wrong. Every single Lincoln Riley defense that has ever taken the field has been fucking garbage. Okay, let's put the schedule. Now we got that out of the way. Let's put the schedule up on the screen and go through it game by game. And I'm going to tell you what Southern Cal's record's going to be, who they're going to lose to, and who they're going to beat. Or maybe they're not going to lose to anybody at all. They start off with a couple of non-con games against some lower classification teams, San Jose State and Nevada. Those will both be wins. 2 home games, 2 wins to start out the season. Third home game in a row to start the season is your first conference game. First Pac-12 game of the year, and it comes against Stanford. Again, it's going to be a win. Brand new coaching staff there. David Shaw is gone. I was a huge David Shaw fan. I really like David Shaw, but for whatever reason, it fell apart at Stanford over the last few years. They've just fallen off the face of the earth. Southern Cal's on a roll. They're now 3-0 heading into an extremely early bye week. And I want to stop at this point in the schedule because this is a good time to mention it. This is ridiculous to have your bye week here. I don't know how bye weeks work in the Pac-12. I I don't know if you submit certain weeks you would want. I know there can't be a reason Southern Cal requested this as a bye week. So this is horrible to have this bye week here, and it's probably going to cost you. If you look at Southern Cal's schedule, a couple of things jump out at you really, really quick. This is one of the most backloaded schedules I have looked at for 2023, right? All schedules are created different. The different strengths of schedules, different home games, away games, different numbers of conference games. Some teams play difficult non-con opponents. Some teams play all terrible non-con opponents, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I've seen a schedule yet for 2023 that is this one-sided in the front half and then exactly the opposite in the back half. You don't play a single team with a heartbeat in your first 5 or 6 weeks, but then the last 5 or 6 weeks is almost all legitimately good teams. So I'm not knocking Southern Cal's schedule overall. I'm not calling this a weak schedule. What I'm saying is, if you're Southern Cal, you should have been on the phone with the Pac-12 office. I don't know if they punished you because you're leaving the Pac-12. That's probably what happened here. This schedule is probably a punishment for leaving the Pac-12. Okay, fine. Take your bye week early in week 3. People would much rather have their bye week later in the season before a big game or something halfway, 3/4 through the season. This is ridiculous. And we're going to give you all your tough games at the end. And that's what they did. But you're 3-0 heading into the bye week. Then you come out with back-to-back road games. Now, this can be tricky. A lot of times under normal circumstances, these are two of the worst teams, not just in the Pac-12, but on planet Earth, Arizona State and Colorado. I'm so sick of the Colorado hype train, I can hardly see straight anymore. And I love Deion Sanders. I've been watching Deion Sanders since I was 8 or 9 years old when I first fell in love with the game of football. But I'm so sick of hearing about Colorado that I can hardly stand it. They're going to be absolutely horrible. And so is Arizona State. If you don't beat these two teams by about 100 points total, something might be wrong with you. But you're 5-0 after destroying Arizona State and probably one of the most overhyped teams I can remember in my lifetime, Colorado. You come back home, you play Arizona, maybe headed in the right direction, but nowhere near where they need to be. Definitely not on Southern Cal's level. Again, this should be a double-digit win. This should be play the backups in the fourth quarter type of game. You're on an absolute roll. You're 6-0. And really, that's the end of part 1 of your season. And then part 2 starts. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Outside of the Colorado game, which is going to be a lot of morbid interest in Colorado this year, the same reason you slow down when you drive by a car wreck, that's the same reason people are going to be interested in Colorado. But outside of that, no one really is going to start paying attention to Southern Cal until this Notre Dame game. Just none of these games, honestly, are really worth watching. Even the Colorado game. Outside of the morbid curiosity of watching Colorado fail, there's really no reason to watch any Southern Cal game until this game at Notre Dame. But from this point forward in your season, every single game is going to be a huge game, in my opinion. It starts on the road at Notre Dame. Now, I've already done a Notre Dame version of this video, so if you've seen that, you know what I'm picking here. And if you want more of my specific thoughts on that game, then click back, watch the Notre Dame video, fast forward to the Southern Cal part. I don't like to repeat myself a lot on these videos. I've got you winning on the road at Notre Dame. Clearly, that's a game you could lose. This is the first game on your schedule. In my mind, it's close to a guaranteed win as you can get in the world of college football. You should win the first 6 without a problem. I think you're going to win on the road at Notre Dame, but this could be a tough spot here, especially considering who you play the following week. A team that beat you not once but twice last year, kept you out of the playoffs. Utah did. This is the team responsible for Southern Cal not making the playoffs last year. After you play on the road at Notre Dame, you got to turn around, come back home, and play Utah. One of the more physical teams in the Pac-12. When I think about physical teams in the Pac-12, it used to be Stanford. Now I think of Utah, Washington, especially defensively. But this is going to be a tough sort of line of scrimmage type of game for Utah. You know, they've got their quarterback back in 2023 as well, Cameron Rising. They lose their all-world tight end, but this has been sort of the fly in the ointment for Southern Cal, at least last year. But I think you beat them at home. I think you get revenge. I think you beat Utah. So however mad you were at me earlier in this video when I was talking about Southern Cal's defense and how bad it is, you should start to be letting some of that go now. I've got you at whatever this is. It's 8-0 now with wins at Notre Dame and home against Utah. You're 8-0. On the road at Cal. This is kind of a bye week you get late in the year. Other than it being a road game, I can't imagine Southern Cal losing this game. If you're looking for a quote-unquote trap game, people love to talk about trap games. Now, a lot of people talk about trap games. They don't even understand what a trap game is. A trap game is a game that you should win other than where it falls on the schedule, right? You should beat Cal. The only reason you won't, if you don't, is because of where it falls on the schedule. That is the literal definition of a trap game. This comes right between your two most physical games of the year. Nothing against Notre Dame. They're a physical team, too. You can put them on that list. Notre Dame, Utah, and Washington are going to be the three most physical teams you play all year. You play them 3 out of 4 weeks in a row. The 1 week you don't play them is that on the road at Cal game. It's going to be easy to overlook this game. I don't think Cal is going to be very good. I don't think they're going to have a very good record. No one's going to be paying any attention to Cal. You got to play them there. There'll probably be 13 people in the stands watching that thing unless for some reason Southern Cal fans decide to travel, which I don't think they're going to do considering they don't even sell out home games there unless they're 100-0. Biggest fair weather fans outside of Miami that I've ever seen. But anyway, this is a prototypical, stereotypical trap game here on the road at Cal. I think Lincoln Riley, too experienced to fall for this, too talented to lose. I think you win again. Home against Washington, on the road at Oregon, home against UCLA to close things out. 3 tough games. You finish up with your cross-city rival. The 2 games before that are against what might be the second and third best teams in the Pac-12, or maybe one of them might be the first best team in the Pac-12, and Southern Cal's the second or third, whatever. I don't think you make it through this stretch without a loss. In fact, there's been a couple of schedules I've sat down to do this year that have been extremely hard for me to do. This has been one of them. I looked at this schedule for an hour today, and every single time I look at it, 10-2, it is what it looks like to me. I can't pinpoint the second loss. Obviously, you could lose to Notre Dame. Obviously, you could lose to Utah. I've got you beating them both. I think you beat Washington at home, lose the following week to Oregon on the road. And then I think you beat UCLA to close out the season for your second straight 11-1 regular season. Now, I think 10-2 is more likely, but that's not how I do my predictions. It would have been a lot easier for me to just go, okay, you look at the schedule, you got 4 or 5 really tough games in the second half of the season, 10-2, and just end the video. If I can't pinpoint a loss, then I give you a win. I think you lose on the road at Oregon. And just the thing with Washington and Oregon, if you were playing at Washington and home against Oregon, I'd flip-flop it. I'd give you a loss at Washington. Washington, Oregon, and Southern Cal. One of those 3 teams is winning the Pac-12. I don't think it'll be Utah. They had a good run. I've got a couple of issues with Utah. It's not so much with Utah as it is the rest of the Pac-12. I don't think Utah's gotten worse. I think the rest of the Pac-12 has gotten better. I don't think Utah's winning the Pac-12 again. I think it's going to be Southern Cal, Washington, or Oregon. Again, there's no divisions in the Pac-12. So 11-1 is almost guaranteed to get you into the Pac-12 title game. And then you're 1 game away from a potential playoff berth, just like you were last year. If Southern Cal does not go 11-1 or 12-0, if Southern Cal goes 10-2 or 9-3 or worse, spoiler alert, it's not going to be because of the offense. Southern Cal's offense is going to be just fine. Caleb Williams is going to put up Heisman numbers again. Marshawn Lloyd is an absolute beast of a running back. The 2 freshmen you brought in are going to give defenses nightmares. You're just loaded everywhere offensively. The offensive line is a little bit of a question mark, but I think it'll come together fine, especially considering the way the schedule lays out. You've got 2 months really to kind of work at it, a month and a half, 6 weeks. To sort of gel the offensive line before you have to play on the road at Notre Dame. The offense is going to be fine. If you don't go 11-1 or 12-0, I don't know how you justify Alex Grinch. And at that point, it's going to be almost impossible for anybody to have any faith in Lincoln Riley defensively ever from now to the end of time. This offense is loaded. It's not very often you get a returning Heisman winner at QB. This is only the second time in Lincoln Riley's coaching career he's had a returning starter at quarterback. It lines up for Southern Cal's offense to be just absolutely unbelievable. If they don't go 11-1 or 12-0, Lincoln Riley needs to answer some very tough questions from the Southern Cal media. He chose to keep Alex Grinch. He didn't fire him last year. If it backfires, if this defense lets Southern Cal down again in 2023, then it's going to be hard to have any faith at all in Lincoln Riley in terms of defense, like I said, from now to the end of time. But there you go. I've got Southern Cal going 11-1 with a loss late in the year on the road at Oregon. 10-2 seems like the most likely record to me, but it's just hard for me to pinpoint that second loss. It could be at Notre Dame, could be Utah, could be home to Washington, could even be UCLA at the end of the year. They lose Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but they've got Dante Moore. Chip Kelly has gotten a little bit better each year he's been there. I don't see you losing any of your first 6 games, but you could definitely catch a couple of losses in those last 6 games. It's just I couldn't nail down a second loss, so I've got you at 11-1 with a loss on the road at Oregon. All right, appreciate you watching. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Have a good morning.